Till I get started, we can get started a little bit early. There's nothing wrong with starting early, right? So, thank you all for coming again today. Let's see, are all the people that said they were going to be here again?
I believe so.
It looks like it. Very good, very good. So, I'm excited to be back and talking with all of you. Today we're going to be talking about things that are required, I think, required for building and growing a business. We're going to focus on three specific things, three specific topics. One is remaining teachable. The second one we're going to be talking about is innovation. And the third thing we're going to be talking about is what I consider to be the lost art of practice. We're going to be talking about those three things today. So I just wanted to sit with that a little bit. Big Bear is a very, very unique market. I guess I've known that for a long time.
What was the second?
You know, being in a resort
Innovation.
market.
Innovation.
Being in a resort market is more pure self. You know, what is different about being in, Northeast Tennessee or in Fontana or in San Diego is that most of the people primarily are their primary homes. And so when somebody has a home to sell, it's usually because they're moving to a new location, they got a job transfer across the country, they have larger families, and so they need more bedrooms. So the motivation for people that are selling their primary homes is a lot stronger than it is to buy resort properties. And we're still at about 80% of people that are non-owner occupants, right? And so it requires you to think more of it as a pure salesperson, which means that you are thinking about fanning the flames of their desire and their dreams and their motivation in that way. And overcoming a lot of objections. I mean, it's really not necessary for them to buy it here. If that makes sense. So I think it's, you guys are probably better salespeople than the people that are in Fontana or in San Diego, because they're dealing with people that are usually a lot more strongly motivated than the people that are buying it. You guys ever thought of that? So, I wrote down a lot of notes because I have so many things going through my mind. I want to make sure that I stay on task. So we talked about you have to have superior sales skills to be successful. Okay, so key number one, making a commitment to being teachable. I want you guys to think back. I'm 61, so you've been around for quite a long time. Do you guys remember Tecmo football? Does anybody remember the first video games? They were those little square Tecmo football games. Anybody else remember that? Okay. What if I had stopped learning about technology when that came out? My first computer was an Apple IIe, I think. What if I stopped learning? What would have happened to me if I had stopped learning?
You get left behind.
You'd get left behind. Okay. So the commitment to being teachable is really, really important. The power of innovation. I wrote down, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So there are things that we can talk about as far as little changes, incremental improvement, maybe 10% changes that improve things over time. We're also going to talk about monumental changes, things that are, creating something, for example, that the customer doesn't even know that they need, that is brand new. So we'll talk a little bit about those things. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the critical importance of practice, which I said is the least adopted business practice that I have seen in the real estate sales business, and I still don't understand it. I'll share this story going into it about practice. I'm reading this book, and I shared this with a couple of my team members this morning, is that for a long time, I've been accused of being too serious. Sound right? No, not true. I mean, I've been accused of being too serious for a long time.
No.
I've been accused of not smiling enough. Right? I had
You got a great smile.
Well,
So, yeah.
and that's a great lead into the rest of the story. So Mike Ferry tells me, I'm sitting across the table with him in a coach's training class for Mike Ferry, and he says, Mark, you have a great smile. And I thought, well, that's sort of awkward. I mean, there's 8 people sitting around the table, and I said, well, thanks, Mike. You know, why'd you bring that up? And he said, you have a great smile. He said, but you don't smile very often. In fact, he says, you know, you sort of have this really intense look on your face all the time. And I'm thinking, well, because I'm paying attention. You know, I'm intensely thinking and paying attention, and I want to know what somebody's saying, and I want to understand what they're saying. And so I get this look, and he says, you know, that's intimidating to people. And he said, our coaches need to be approachable by our customers, and so you need to stop doing that. Right? So I got that feedback. So what did I do? I decided to smile, and this is what it looked like. My wife Carrie would say, the fake smile doesn't work. Okay. So fast forward to, I'm flying out on the plane and I read this book. So this is a little message in being coachable. I'm reading the story about a guy that is talking about the power of the smile. And he uses the example of a woman that he knew in college that had this big, beautiful smile, and he was really friendly with her, and she took over her father's business. And before her father died, he had this heart-to-heart talk with her about her smile. And he showed her an article. And the article talked about how women in business struggle if they smile too quickly. If women come up to you with a big smile in the beginning, that they're not taken seriously. And so he had saved this research, and he had saved this article for her because he knew she was going to be taking over the business as he was terminally ill, and he wanted her to be successful. And so the author went to the presentation with her and said, you know, your smile was just as big as it ever was. And she says, but there's one little difference. She said, what I did with my smile is I don't start by smiling, I let it grow. Slowly. Now, did that look awkward?
Yes.
Okay, I need practice. So the point is that I'm going to make with all of this as we go through this is that you gather new information and you recognize that there's something that you can use. You make the decision about how you can put it into your business, and then you practice it so that you do it right. Okay, so that's a good lead-in to where we're going to today.
What's the name of the book?
How to Talk to Anyone, 92 Little Tricks for Big Success in Relationships. I don't know why I picked it up. Somebody had recommended it to me, and I took it with me to Tennessee, and it's been sitting on my shelf. And I just picked it up because it's time to read it, and I like it. So that technique that he's talking about is a flooding smile. A flooding smile. Think of a rising flood. I'll practice. I will practice, and then we'll get better, okay? So, talking today about being teachable, the importance of having an open mind. There's a book by Stephen Covey called Sharpen the Saw. Anybody read that? Johnny in the back has read that, okay? So he talks about improving what it is that you're doing. If you have a saw and you keep on going on it. Anybody ever go to Oktoberfest?
Yes.
Those things are pretty sharp, right? And they cut through the wood pretty quick. When you're sawing with a really bad saw, you want to sharpen the saw, and new skills are able to do that. So you have to have an open mind in order to gather new ideas to do things differently. Remember we talked about having an Apple IIe computer. Now we're using things that are probably, what do you think, 10,000 times faster than those Apple IIes? I mean, tremendously faster. So you want to be able to sharpen the saw and gather new information. So you want to have an open mind with that. Which leads me to a question. Does anybody know what a paradigm shift is?
Yes.
Johnny, what's a paradigm shift?
Ooh, can I share a story?
Yeah.
So I'm in New York at a competition. We've been going till almost 3 o'clock in the morning. We get on the subway. There's only 10 or 15 people in there. But it's the Sunday morning crowd. They're reading the newspaper. It's very quiet. It's very calm. This guy gets on with his 3 kids, and instantly the environment in the car changed. The kids are bouncing off the wall. They're banging into people. They're knocking over purses. And you could feel the animosity coming from the whole car towards his father, who was just sitting there with his head down. And his kids are going nuts. And finally somebody says, "Excuse me, sir, can you control your children?" And we're all kind of, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. We just came from the hospital when they lost their mother.
Jeez.
And I'm not sure how to cope with this yet."
Oh, that's quite a paradigm shift for everybody that was in that.
Everybody.
Yeah.
They're like, let the kids play.
Information can change your perception
Yeah.
of the immediate reality. That's a paradigm shift.
Yes. And that is proof positive that you read the book, because that's where I got the idea. That was the same exact story. Bravo.
You didn't plan
And we didn't even plan that. So there's a lot of power in what you just experienced in that. You know, there are situations where we're sort of in a rut, or we're in a place in our life where we're moving along, and if nothing changes, nothing changes. If we're not gathering in new information where we can grow slowly or change slowly, we're not growing at all. And occasionally we will gather some big information that will be so cataclysmic that it will change our business and our life, just like that story, from irritation to compassion, to where all of a sudden everybody on the car wants to go over and help the kids and comfort the kids and the father, rather than wring the father's neck. Right? So thank you, Johnny, for coming up with that, okay? And so what we're looking for a lot of times is new information, because we don't know if it's going to be big or if it's going to be small. But if we're not open-minded and looking, we're not going to find anything at all. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we find new ideas? What are some examples of where we can find new ideas? I know there are people in here, Buffini classes? Oh, we're doing Buffini classes. Anybody reading books? Some people are writing books. Some people are writing books. You reading books? Audio books? Okay. Anybody do a podcast? Okay. Is there anything else other than books and podcasts and training seminars that you guys are doing?
So I forget who it was, but it said the only thing that will change who you are in the next year are the books you read, the music you listen to, and the people you meet.
Ding ding.
Get out there.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I wrote down a few book suggestions. One, if you haven't read it, it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. You'll read that story in there. Atomic Habits, I know that I've talked about that before. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about will reinforce the James Clear stuff. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Anybody read that? Anybody not read that?
I actually had a class in it in high school. It was a whole semester where we studied that book.
And there was a book that the Remax group gave out 2 or 3 years ago. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. And so that will be out there as well. Okay. There is no shortage of good ideas. Okay. Podcasts, mentioning podcasts, I know that Brian Buffini's doing a podcast, Jared James is doing a podcast. Anybody else listening to those? Tom Ferry? Okay. You like them, don't like them? What's your feedback on them?
I love it, but he's so good. So there's motivation, there's real estate, there's everything.
Tom Ferry just did one where he interviewed his dad. I listened to it yesterday. Yeah, he was Didn't buy yours.
It starts in January. Well, that will be one. You know, and you know, what's interesting is I've listened to a lot of the real estate coaching people do their podcast, and they're to me, they're too long. I mean, Jared James talks for an hour, and it seems like he screws around for 45 minutes out of the hour.
Yeah, I have 15 minutes to listen to a podcast.
That's why I like the tiny ones, because they're short.
There's some shortcut ones.
Yeah.
Did you know you can listen to them at twice speed?
Yes.
Yes,
I just.
Do that with the classes.
So there are some other ones. You know, the Mental Selling, the Sales Performance Podcast, Selling Made Simple. These are things that are not real estate specific, but they are about sales. The Advanced Sales Podcast. So there's 3 of those that I've been listening to that are good. I think one of the most important places where you can find new ideas is to find a mastermind group. Anybody currently involved in a mastermind group? I would think Rachel would be the only one. Not currently?
I'm with Tom Ferry, and
With
they
Tom.
have like all of us get together.
Okay. So is it your coaches group that's sort of together, or is it something separate?
So we do one-on-one, and then we do everybody that he coaches.
Okay. Okay. So has anybody been in a mastermind group before and is not now? Has anybody been in one before? Okay. So one of the best places to learn new things and how to apply them to what you're interested in is to find people that are in your same business that are not in your marketplace. Why is that important? What's that?
Different ideas.
Yes, different ideas, okay. The reason is that you can be in a mastermind group in our marketplace, and everybody shares those ideas together, and everybody goes out and does them. And what does that do to the idea? It waters it down. Okay, and so we're going to talk about a little bit why that's important later. The other way to do it is to go to events and meet people and talk to them. I still remember one of the lessons I learned from Mike Ferry that I thought was fascinating, and I really didn't understand it at the time. And it sort of goes along with what we said a little bit earlier about talking to people, or about the people that you're around are going to influence you. Mike said in order to be flexible, to go and do things that you're not normally doing. Meet people that you don't, I mean, if you talk to the same people every day, are you ever going to learn anything new? Probably not, right? And so Mike made the comment, and I know Jim Rohn has made the comment also about meeting people on purpose. Meeting people that you don't know on purpose so that you can get influenced in, get an understanding into the uniqueness of what they're doing. And if you do it outside your marketplace, at a RE/MAX convention, at a Tom Ferry convention, at a CAR convention, they don't even have to be in the real estate business necessarily to be people that if you get curious about what they're doing, they can share ideas with you about what they're doing in their business and their life that you can apply to yours. So the whole point about this is to be open-minded so that you're bringing new ideas in. So who's heard the difference between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea?
The Dead Sea has an inlet but no outflow. The Sea of Galilee has an inlet and an outflow, and that's why there's life in it.
Right. Okay. So if you are involved in a mastermind group, it means that you are bringing in information from other people that helps you to grow. But information that you have is outflowing to other people, and that's sort of the circle of life. The Sea of Galilee is teeming with life, good fishing grounds, it's a hotbed of ancient history, right? But the same water that goes through the Sea of Galilee ends up going into the Dead Sea, but there's no outlet. And what happens in the Dead Sea? Everything is dead. So to me, the idea of being involved with a mastermind group or a group of people that you associate with in order to share learning not only gives you accountability, but it also creates life because you're not only receiving, you're also giving it back. Right? Think about that. If you're sharing ideas with other people, you're giving back and that creates life. There's another important point about that from Jim Ronan. He asked the question, if you have a water glass that's full, can you fit any more water into the glass? If the glass is full. Some
Sounds
people-
like a trick question.
Well,
We've seen the one with the rocks and the sand and all this stuff.
that was Brian Buffini gave you that idea.
If it's full, it's full. You gotta empty it.
Yes.
So you get that.
So in order to put fresh water in a glass, first you have to pour out what's in it. So in order for you to grow by gathering new ideas, first you need to be giving ideas out so that you can take in fresh ideas. The second part of it, and one of the reasons why you see me standing in front of you today, is that when you hear a good idea and you get really excited about it, you've heard it once. But if I go out and tell 10 people, or 15 people, or 20 people, they get to hear it once, but I get to hear it 10, 15, 20 times. Who's going to get the benefit of that idea? Yeah. Okay, so we want to be more like the Sea of Galilee than the Dead Sea. Okay? So let's move. This is one of the things that if you want your business to grow in 2025, you need to have a commitment to an open mind and a plan to do it. The second part is innovation. This is sort of an interesting thing. I remember there was a client that we had years back. His name was Thomas Bowe. Thomas Bowe ended up buying some property up here, and I think he sold everything, but he was into batteries. And one of the things that he said about innovation was that if you could find a way to make battery storage 10% more efficient, that it would revolutionize the market. So he was talking about incremental changes. Okay. That's one way to do it, is that's the 10% rule. If you can improve an idea by 10%, you can make things better to where it stands out. I wrote down this note: if you improve by 1% every week for a year, 52 weeks, you will end up with a cumulative improvement of over 37 times your starting point, thanks to the compounding effect of small, consistent gains. Essentially, you'll be significantly better at the end of the year compared to where you started. Now, how can you get better if you continue to do the same things over and over and over again? Well, you can work more hours. Anybody want to do that? I don't think so. I don't do either. Okay. So innovation, making those kinds of changes. One of the things that we've talked about in the past, I know, is the book, The Purple Cow. Anybody remember? I'm not going to go back to that. But the whole principle behind The Purple Cow is if you saw a purple cow driving down the street, you would remember it. Because it was different. Okay. If you were driving down the street and all the cows were purple after a period of time, you'd be surprised if you saw a black cow. Right? Because you're looking for something that stands out. So it got me to thinking about, you, all of you in this marketplace, in our market, is that who stands out here? Can you give me some examples of some things that stand out that are just phenomenally different from everybody else?
Rachel's round sign.
Yes! Yes! Innovation. Did it cost you any more to change the size of the sign?
No.
No.
It wasn't me. I had no part in thinking about doing that either. I won't
But
take
you
credit
did
for
it.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gave the okay.
Now, right here, I'm going to say, don't go out and get round signs.
That's right.
It's
also still available.
Yeah. Don't go out and get round signs because it's a good idea. You know, don't go out and do that because if you do
I'm gonna
that,
get an octagon sign.
Like a stop sign. Yeah.
getting signs that have the LED lights on it that are solar operated that light up the sign at night, that would stand out. Okay.
How about Karen LeBrun with her dog?
I remember when they first started having the photos on the signs, when that was innovative.
See, in order to innovate, you can take something that we're already doing and change it to doing it a little bit differently like nobody else is doing, and it will stand out. It's still a sign, but Rachel's signs are different, okay? So when I think about, the innovation and creating something that basically is a unique selling proposition, when you innovate, you're different from everybody else. Now, and this can be a really direct question, but is there anything that you guys feel like you're doing that is so different from everybody else that the seller will pay you an extra 2% to work with you?
If they could do that, no.
Well, okay, this is something that part of what we're talking about here is going into 2025 is to make it part of your business plan to look for ways to be innovative to stand out. I mean, if you didn't innovate anything new in the last year, you wasted a year without innovating. Anytime there's a unique selling proposition, even if it's not true. I've used this example about having the small buyer's guide digest thing that I had back in 2002, 3, and 4. I spent $35,000 a year on those little digest magazines that had my listing, nobody else was in it. And every time I'd go in a listing presentation, I would real cockily say to the seller, I'm the only one in town that has their own buyer's guide, and I was the only one, spending $35,000 a year to have his own buyer's guide. Do you know how many sales I made in 4 or 5 years out of that darn thing? 1. How many listings did I take? 80, 90, 100 a year. Okay, it was unique. Did it make a difference? Got me a lot of listings. Okay, nobody else had it. So you want to do things that are different so that you stand out. And when people copy you, you have to come up with something that's new. Okay? In the absence of being different, there's only one thing that you're going to be competing on, and I know you guys are struggling with this right now, and it's your commissions. If everybody's the same, I got a sign, I'm putting it in the MLS, I'm doing professional photos, I'm honest and hardworking. All 10 agents that I interviewed said the same thing. How much will you do it for? Right? Okay. So, we're going to talk about, about little incremental changes and some, I'm going to give you an example of an exercise that you can do, but there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is a monumental change. It's sort of that paradigm shift, and I don't think anybody saw this coming, but and I have to read some of these notes because I didn't know it, but Airbnb pretty much disrupted the hospitality industry. And I had never thought about it until I had done this research. They addressed unserved needs. They offered a variety of lodging options. Hotels give you 3 or 4 different rooms. They're all decorated pretty much the same way. If you go on Airbnb, how many different places do you have to stay? Unlimited, right? They created a peer-to-peer marketplace, so they became actually the relationship builder between homeowners and guests. They provided local experiences, so when you went on their website, not only each of the houses would have things like guided tours and cooking classes and other things. I remember one house we looked at that was for sale in one area had been decorated sort of with the history of the little town that they were in. So they had taken sort of memorabilia from the town, and they had restored it and put it into this Airbnb, and they actually had it on like the town historical tour list, an Airbnb on the historical tour list for a town. Okay, so they did all kinds of crazy things like that. They scaled supply to meet demand so they could quickly add inventory if there were people coming to Big Bear, for example. How long does it take to build a hotel? 3 years? 4 years, maybe? Big demand in COVID, guess what happens? Airbnb listings went up crazy. So that was a major disruptor. And the easiest way to think about doing that is to ask yourself the question, what would your clients want or pay for that they don't even ask for yet? That's the question. I don't have the answer for you, but I have the question. What do my customers need that they're not asking for yet, that nobody else is providing? So let's go into the exercise. The exercise, I call it the 10 ideas a day exercise. If you're serious about working on your business, ask yourself these questions. What could I do for my clients to get them to agree to pay me more than 3%? And I think a lot of times the answer comes into the things that we hear most often that we moan and complain about our clients. My client was complaining about this, dummy. Think about what I just said. Our clients have desires, needs, wants, that they express frustration that it's not happening. And rather than finding a way to provide it in a way that earns us income, we belittle them. Another question. What valuable information do I possess that if potential customers knew about it, they would call me? It may be valuable information that nobody else knows, but the minute you share it, other people will know it. Maybe it's not information that nobody else has, but it's information that you find a way to deliver to your clients in a way that nobody else does.
You say it again.
I just made it up. So the questions are, what information do I have that if my customers knew I had it, they would call me to get it? What information do I have that everybody else has that I can deliver in a different way, with a different method? Did I say something else? Because I lost that other one. There was another one, I lost it.
I wished it.
What do they want me that they don't know that they want?
Yeah, what do they need that they don't know that they need? Another question is, once you identify that information that you possess, how can I market to the public that I have that information so that they know it? So I'm not a secret agent. You can be the best agent in the whole world if nobody knows you. Business is pretty thin, right? Now these are a lot of hard questions. And if everybody came up with the same answer, you would not have a unique selling proposition. Right? So these are things that you need to do on your own. It takes a lot of hard work to do it. You can certainly collaborate with these kinds of ideas with people that are outside of our industry. One of my best friends is a client that I'm meeting tomorrow, for lunch. He worked for a cosmetic manufacturing company his entire career, just retired a year and a half ago. He's a pilot, a really sharp individual. We've done business together, but we're good friends and we share business ideas. We've been business partners. I feel really sad today because we closed our LLC today, you know, after 15 years of having it together. But we get to celebrate it tomorrow. It's been a great relationship. So you can have relationships with other people where you ask these kinds of questions and you bounce ideas off of each other because you're not really competitors. Okay? And so any ideas that you sort of generate from that, you can bring to the marketplace and it won't be watered down because everybody copies it right away. You can do the same thing with a mastermind group that are real estate people. Pick people from Mammoth, pick people from Palm Springs, pick people from Denver. People that you can, you know, share ideas with. So everybody comes up with a great idea, they go and they do it in different marketplaces, and then you can see how it works. Okay. We talked about that, cross-industry inspiration. The takeaway is that innovation is not optional. It's a foundation for survival and thriving in real estate. So here's the big hammer on the head idea. You can either grow or stand still. But somebody's growing, and if it's not you, you're going to be left behind. So, 10 ideas. How can I make more money this week? Write down 10 ideas. Okay. And see if those things can get implemented. Any questions so far? Thoughts? Got real serious there. I need to smile again. I have to practice. Which is a good lead into practicing. Practicing is the most ignored thing in real estate, and I don't know why. I don't know why. No, I don't know why.
We practice like role play?
I mean, you know, any kind of, I mean, I still remember when the idea was first introduced to me, it was by Steve Shull, who worked for Mike Ferry back in the late 80s. And Steve Shull was a former Miami Dolphins football player. And he made the point that they practice 40 hours a week, they study film, they practice the movements, they exercise their bodies, they prepare 40 hours a week, and the game is 3 hours. You know, and the average agent in real estate probably goes on 20 listing presentations a year and never practices before any of them. Why is that? Why is that? It still boggles my mind. So when I talk about 3 things that are indispensable about growing your business in 2025, if you make the commitment to practice, you're going to be doing what the rest of the industry does not want to do. Now, I know Vlasta's practiced because I practiced with her. And I know she's had role play partners for years, and I think there's some other people that have done it well, but they don't keep doing it. They don't keep doing it. Okay? We don't practice until we get it right once. See, I can practice my smile. I get it right once.
That was a good one.
See, I got it right once. But the idea of practicing isn't so that you get it right. It's practicing so you never get it wrong. Practice so you never get it wrong. Mike Ferry used to like to play golf. He played in a Pro-Am down in Palm Desert every year. Can't remember the name of it. It was some big tournament down there. And he played with, I think it was Curtis Strange, and at the end of their round, he asked Curtis Strange, he said, what's the difference between a professional golfer and a single, you know, or double handicap? And Curtis says, oh, that's easy. After an 18 round of golf, the amateur goes to the bar and talks about the great shot that he hit. And the professional goes to the range for an hour and a half and practices the shot he missed. So if we want to grow our business, we have to think that way. We have to think that way. We have to think about practicing. One last thing I'll talk about practicing, and that is the 10,000 hour rule. Who's heard that? The guy's name that came up with it was a guy named Gladwell. It was popularized in his book called Outliers, The Story of Success. And his idea is based on research that suggests practice is the essence of genius. And here's what I underlined. He claims that with enough practice, anyone can achieve a level of proficiency that would rival that of a professional. So the difference between the goal that you want to achieve and where you're at today, if there's any discrepancy, the answer to that is practice. So, let's talk about scripts, because I know that's what everybody does want to practice. People don't even want to use scripts. So tell me, why do people not want to use scripts?
Doesn't
Don't
sound
want to
natural.
sound scripted.
Doesn't sound natural.
It doesn't sound natural. You're right. You're right. You know, some of those people that you get, the telemarketers calling you, it sounds like they're reading it right. They're reading it off the screen and they can hardly read, right? It's really bad. I mean, the minute somebody starts garbling their script, you know, when they telemarket me, I hang up. Okay? But do you know that the truly top sales professionals are using scripts too? What's the difference?
They wrote
They
it,
practice it so much they don't sound scripted anymore.
and they wrote it to fit their personality, because some of these scripts that I'm reading is not something I would say to my client. So it has to be it has to be tweaked.
Tailored to yourself.
Tweaked to your personality and how you speak to your clients too.
And I agree with all of those objections. You know, and I think I don't know if I shared this in my introductory podcast thing, but I still remember going over to Mike Dolan's office in 1986, and I walked in one day and he offered me some Tommy Hopkins tapes. He said, you know, here's some Tommy Hopkins tapes. They'll help you, you know, get started in the business. He was being nice to me. I was an idiot. I says, I don't want to learn any of that manipulation crap. And he said, okay, there you go. What an idiot. Okay. I mean, that's what I thought using a script was manipulation. Is it manipulation?
No.
Can be.
Yeah.
Can be depending on your motivation. It can be ineffective based on your skill level. Well, how do you get better? By practice. Okay. So, I'm going to share a couple, and you guys have all heard this script before. You know, when do you plan on moving? How long have you lived at this address? If you were to move, where would you go next, and when would that be? Obviously, you realize it could take 6 to 9 months in this market to get a home sold. You guys have all heard me do this. Like, you've heard me do it before. Okay, so I know the words, but knowing the words, is that enough? No. So there are things that are called upswings and downswings. What does an upswing tell people? What does an upswing tell people about you?
You're not sure.
You're not sure, you're not confident? What does an upswing tell you? A downswing tells you something different, right? So upswings, lack of confidence. A downswing in the tone of voice projects authority. Upswing is uncertainty. Maybe he's lying, right? So when you practice your scripts, when do you plan on moving? Instead of, when do you plan on moving? How long have you lived at this address? If you were to move, where would you go next? It sounds different, right? And so when you're practicing, if you become aware of these particular things in your presentation, you can do things that will help you to internalize the script better. And that is to use your body. We are spiritual and physical beings. They're connected. So when you plan on moving, when you move down, when you move your body down, it will tend to bring your tone down. If you sort of shove your shoulders up, it'll tend to bring your voice up a little bit as well. If you were to move, where would you go next? Using hand gestures to create emphasis. Okay? Upswings, downswings, the power of using a script. Words that you're comfortable using. You'll get more comfortable if you practice the words that you're used to, or adjust them to where you are comfortable with it. Okay? Upswings, downswings, the empowerment of embedded commands. Who knows what an embedded command is? Listen to this. When I see you, how much do you want to list your home for?
You're emphasizing less.
Yeah. There's an embedded command in there. Now, that was a little bit more, that was probably a little bit more emphasis than you would want to do with your customer, but I was trying to make a point with it. The power of communication is so important that it's not only the way that you look, it's the way you sound, it's your tone of voice. And you need to study that in order to be a successful, powerful salesperson. So I'm going to take this phrase and give you an example of what I mean by how putting emphasis changes things. In the sentence I want you to write down is, I did not say he beats his wife. I did not say he beats his wife. And when the message is shared with you, you're going to come up with a whole bunch of different meanings. I did not say he beats his wife. What did I just tell you?
But you didn't say it either.
If somebody else did.
But somebody else did. I did not say he beats his wife.
He says
I
it.
implied it.
Yeah.
I implied it, but I didn't say it. I did not say he beats his wife.
But
He does something,
He
and he
might
does
be
something
emotional.
else.
he might just shove her around, but he doesn't
He
do
doesn't.
that.
I did not say he beats his wife.
Oh, geez.
Somebody else.
I did not say he beats his wife,
Both kids.
his kids, his dog.
Oh, goodness.
Now, that's a really uncomfortable exercise because I don't like the sentence. But what it does is it tells you is that if you practice these skills, and I don't mean practice it to where you get it right once, where you practice it where you can't get it wrong, what will that do to your presentation skills? The most important thing about using powerful scripts is that while other people are talking, you're not thinking about your script. Right? Because you already know your script. And if they give you an objection, you know what your script is for that particular objection. You don't have to think it out. Make sense? Okay. Bad delivery makes scripts seem insincere. We demonstrated how to rehearse scripts authentically. One of the points that I want to make with role playing is that it's good to get somebody else to do them with you. Is once you know what your script is, okay, how many of you have had the objection where you cut the commission? How many of you practice your answer? You can. You can. If you are getting objections over and over on a routine basis and you come up with an answer, write it down, memorize it, and role play it with your role play partner. So that when you're role playing with somebody else, they give you that objection over and over and over so that you continue to answer that objection. Okay? And to remember that when you're practicing, that you're saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Any other questions? Practice it. Okay? You're going to be getting objections probably that I'm not hearing because I'm not selling day to day. Write them down, come up with a good response, run it by your accountability partner, your mastermind group, and other people that you trust. Come up with a good answer and then practice it. Okay? Today we talked about the golfer. Is there anybody in here that has made a commitment they're going to start practicing? So, we've talked about a commitment to learning. Absolutely critical for your success in 2025. If you do exactly what you did this year and didn't change anything about your approach to the business, would you achieve your goals for next year? No. Okay. So that's off the table. You have to learn new information and implement it. If you want to be standing out from your competition, you recognize that you have to be different. Right? We talked about that. The 10 question a day exercise. How can I be different? How can I be different so I stand out? What can I do differently that they would be willing to pay me more for? What information can I share with people so that they call me? Start working on those questions. And come up with a deliberate practice plan. Now, I know all of you have a schedule. Does anybody have this? Who's got a schedule that they have right now that they can just recite off the top of their head? Where's your perfect day daily schedule like? You don't stay with it? What's your perfect day schedule? Uh-huh.
I start 5 o'clock, from 9 o'clock to 11 p.m. the phone.
Okay.
11 to 12 to follow up. Phone calls. 12 to my lunch, 1 to 3 do whatever lead I had from cold calling. 2 to 3 go back to make a letter on the computer. Read my emails and type the letters from the mail. Rest of the 3 o'clock is done for the day, and then 6 to 7 make a phone call.
That sounds like a very traditional Mike Ferry schedule. I know where you got it. Okay. Anybody else have a schedule? And I know it's different on different days. Monday for me is I get up at 4:45. I have my morning self-development God prayer time that runs until 7. I get something to eat. I go play pickleball from 8 to 11. I come home and have lunch, and now what I'm doing is uninterrupted work time. And when I say uninterrupted, I mean uninterrupted. The door is shut. There's no notifications. There's no nothing. From 1 to 5 o'clock, there is no interruptions. I just work. I have a to-do list and I just work. Carrie doesn't come in, phone doesn't ring, nothing.
Do you finish your to-do list every day?
Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. That's Monday. You know, Tuesdays are different, Wednesdays, Carrie's off Wednesdays and Thursdays, so my days are off, you know, they're different. You know, but I have a schedule each and every day. I know it's easier than being in real estate when clients are calling. I understand. But it pays to have one that you can follow. And in your daily schedule or your weekly schedule, these things that we're talking about today, education on purpose needs to be in your schedule. See, I think a lot of people go to work selling real estate and don't have a schedule, and whatever happens, happens. Well, if you put that time in your schedule, it will happen if it's in there. You can add the exercise about innovation. You know, what can I do different? You can put that into your schedule. You can put the practice into your schedule. So all the things that we've talked about today, if you do them, they will help change your business next year. But it won't change your business next year just because we talked about it today. It's going to change your business next year because you did it. Okay? And the only way it's going to get done is to get in your schedule. So that's really what I want the commitment from you guys today, is that you'll take the 1, 2, 3, whatever ideas that you got from today, and when you go back to your business planning, you know, whether it's, you know, today when you get back to the office or this weekend when you're reviewing your day, go back and review it. Go back and review it. And change your schedule so that you can put it in. And I'd love to hear how you did that. So that's it for me, unless there's any questions or challenges that people might, ideas on?
I just have a couple of comments. I think people are afraid of the word script. It just says negative. I like what Brian Buffini says, it's a dialogue. You know, if you don't like that word script, change it to dialogue. Open your mind, you know. Sometimes it's how you see things, not how it's presented to you. You can change your mindset. The other thing is scheduling. I know everybody has good intentions. The point is to get back to it. Get back to your schedule.
This guy blew my mind that I read, and the reason why I have the quote uninterrupted time in my schedule, and it's Monday at 1 is not the only time, but this guy was an MIT professional, and he got up at 5 a.m. and he did a couple of things, and then he worked for 4 hours uninterrupted. If he got off work to go to the bathroom, he turned off his timer, went to the bathroom, and came back and went to work. So he worked for 4 hours straight, uninterrupted. At the end of that, he would play music for an hour. Music does something particular. I mean, I love music, and so it's really moving. So he would play guitar or piano or something for an hour. Then he would exercise, and then he would have his first and sometimes only meal of the day. And then he would go back to another 4-hour uninterrupted session of work. When that 4 hours was over, he did a couple of things, and then he would go into a 4-hour non-structured, you know, where he would have give and take back and forth, you know, and he would take interruptions, he would respond to emails, he would, you know, he would let, you know, the other people around him dictate where his line was. And I thought, my God, how much could you get accomplished if you just didn't get interrupted? And I know all of you know that. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I moved my office upstairs, that's what I did. Anything else? Well, thank you all for coming. I'm glad to be back. I hope. Oh, so when we talk about podcasts, there will be another one. Check it out in January. I will be making sure that you're all aware how to find it. But if you go to YouTube to Time Tested Mastery, you would find me there. If you go to Facebook Time Tested Mastery, you would find me there. If you go to Spotify, if you go to Apple iTunes, you will find me there. My website, Time Tested Mastery, has a landing page, but it will be up and running within a week. So you'll be able to get information there. They will be short. They're not going to be the long things that Jared James is doing. It's going to be hopefully things that will be helpful with you for your life and career.
How often are you doing it?
Twice a week.
Wow.
Tuesdays and Fridays. I know, I'm scared. Turn the tape off. I'm scared shitless. It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work.
And that's a big commitment to do.
It's a lot of work.
That is.
It's a lot of work.